Moves.
We are streaming live on Facebook. So we're gonna kick it off with a little dance party here as we do every week. But welcome to the show, Cindy. Thank you so much for being here. I am your host, Matt Sloan, CEO of Skyfire, and Ben is not joining us this week. But joining us this week is Cindy L., who's the founder of the Firefighter Cancer Foundation. So Cindy, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. It's great to
My pleasure. We're still dancing, so this is good.
I know, exactly. Don't worry, we'll get to dance again at the end. I'll put the music
Okay.
So, but I just want to give everybody a little bit of background on why you're joining us on the show today. So we met probably 2 years ago now at FDIC, and had a great conversation about the Firefighter Cancer Foundation. And just to kind of give you some insight into why this is such an important topic for me, is, you know, I've had several relatives who have had and died from cancer. And so it's always been a topic that I cared about. But at FDIC a couple of years ago, I think I told you this story, Cindy, I saw this big plastered on the side of the wall, 68% of firefighters will get cancer in their lifetimes. And that just stopped me in my tracks. And I just thought, wow, that's an incredibly high number. And for those of you who don't know, I was a medical journalist for about 12 years. And so I understand what a big deal that is. And we can get into that number in a minute, because I know that's not exactly the right number. But the long and short of it is that I think what really stuck with me about it was, we're asking firefighters to go into burning buildings and save people's lives that they don't know and they're not related to. And they don't often get paid a lot of money for doing that. And then the reward is that when they retire, or sometimes before they retire, they're getting cancer. And it actually chokes me up every time I think about it, because it just doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem fair. And so, it's a topic that I've always sort of been interested in, and then met with you at FDIC, and we just started talking and kind of hit it off from there. And so, one of the, it looks like your camera's drifting down there.
Oops, sorry.
It was like we're slowly drifting down there.
The wonders of home studio activity.
We're all just trying to make it work. So but it just really struck me. And I know there's a lot of people doing a lot of great work around cancer in the fire service. So there is a tie-in here to drones, and we'll get to that at some point here, and using technology to actually help mitigate some of the stuff. But tell me a little bit about your background and sort of how you got the foundation started.
It's incredible. I didn't really understand before, but having been around the fire service now for almost 35 years total, when I look back, and yes, I'm that old, which again is hard to conceptualize, in many of our minds too. Because we get into this for the love. We hope that we're going to last with longevity. And when I literally fell into this opportunity, it started as a young child. Rode around on both an old fire truck at the time they were called, and a town of Bennington management vehicle with my Uncle Hank, who was my hero. He was a paratrooper. He was volunteer fire chief. It's great. You look back at the history of Bennington, Vermont, and you'll see basically the same names of fire chiefs that kind of took turns, in succession, and some incredible history there that I got to live growing up with family in Vermont. And, fast forward to adult years, literally fell into a transition from looking at law enforcement and criminology and that line of work to I started dating a volunteer firefighter. And at those times you could respond personal vehicle to a fire scene. And so, middle of the night, get up, you run out of the car, you respond to fire scene. And I'm watching folks do this. I'm going, this is pretty cool. I'd like to do that. And realized there's no reason I can't do that. So got my EMT, got my firefighter certifications and trainings in Maryland, and then was fortunate to become a career firefighter as well through Anne Arundel County, Maryland. About a year after coming out of fire school, though, I found out that we were all exposed to PCBs at our training academy because of our training practices, because of the use of waste oils and things that we as firefighters and in the fire service didn't know were hazardous to us. But unfortunately, some of the companies that gave us those wonderful products did. So the prior background I had as a private investigator and working that side of life also kicked back in, and I started investigating, and I started digging in and asking questions and gathering evidence. And again, this is 30 some years ago. 2 years on the job, got involved with the union because I saw, wait a minute, we need to have better practices for health and safety. I wanted to have my voice count as well as those I cared about, and was serving alongside. And I felt, okay, if I'm going to do this, I need to step up and take personal responsibility. So I joined my executive board and got involved nationally in labor and health and safety work. And the more that I learned, the more I dug in, and then the more angry I got as well. And there goes my iPad again. Sorry, gang.
You're so angry that your camera is falling down.
We're still learning how to do home webinars, so bear with me.
Yeah.
But I wanted to turn that anger into something positive also. So it turned into literally thousands of hours of research, interviews of folks from scientists to epidemiologists to doctors to people that were sick and dying to family members of those that were sick and dying. I saw it firsthand in my own department, whose cancer numbers were extraordinary for a period of time, to now fast forward looking at those trends in hindsight, not only across the US, but I've also been looking at them globally. This is our 16th anniversary for the Firefighter Cancer Foundation, actually this month. I can't believe 16 years of my life has been put into nonprofit work. That still blows my mind. But more importantly, it's not about me. It's actually the team that have been able to put together, and the folks that have entrusted their lives to me, and the team that has come together and stayed together now for over a decade. We have very little turnover in our organization because we all like each other, care about each other, love each other, whether we agree or disagree. We all respect each other. And so in living not only as individuals, but bringing our own skill sets to the table, we've been able to, I think, provide kind of a unique sense of direction, if you will, and also a unique level of guidance to folks in a huge number of areas across the board dealing with firefighter cancer. And then looking at technology and science and medicine and life. And, you look at, I feel like we're February right now because we haven't had FDIC this year. So I feel like I'm living Groundhog Day, like everybody else.
We're all in a little bit of FDIC withdrawal too. And I was like, oh, April's not that far away.
I mean,
maybe we'll have this all figured out by then.
FDIC is like a rite of passage every year. It's where all of our research comes out and where everybody launches, everything new and wonderful and great about the fire service and a first responder service. And we didn't have that. And I think all of us have been mourning that. Yeah.
We certainly feel the same way about it too. It's just such a great time to reconnect with everybody and share information and all that kind of stuff.
From a business standpoint, and for you guys, and everybody else, all of our company partners, we've seen it directly as a nonprofit because we've had every fundraiser has been canceled. Yeah. So we got to a point where I've literally had to go back to the olden days of having to fund this nonprofit to keep it going out of my own pension.
Yeah.
And that's not something that I should be doing, as president's organization. But when you believe in something with all your heart and all your passion, and even though I've been retired physically from the job now for a little over 20 years from the field, every time I hear a siren, every time I see a fire engine or a paramedic unit or something that takes me back to that portion of my life, your heart kind of skips an extra beat because it's in your blood. It's in your being.
Yeah, no, I haven't worked in an ambulance in, 16 years now, and I still get it. So
it never goes away. No, the people that really delve into this and becomes a core part of their life and their being, it never goes away.
Yeah. No, I think that's so true. And I think that's, I think back to what I was saying earlier about why people do this and why people send themselves into burning buildings is because there's a love for the job and there's a real desire to help. And I think, we're a for-profit company, but, my mantra to the folks who work here has always been, we do this because we're trying to help people be safer at the end of the day. And I don't care if that means we sell a drone or we don't, whatever that takes. to help people do their jobs more safely. So I want to dig in a little bit, so I'll never forget, seeing that sort of poster. I guess not even a poster; it was the size of a wall. But let's
it was
talk
a billboard.
It was a billboard. It really was, yeah. And that sort of opened my eyes to it. So 68% is not the accurate number. That study, I think you told me, was based primarily on Boston firefighters. Is that right?
Well, at that time, and again, so that number was put out 2 years ago. 2 years ago, the numbers officially per the IFF, per the CDC, and per the recognized tracking platforms that have been substantiated and scientifically quantified.
Yep.
Big difference when you look at numbers, because any bulk of data can be skewed in any given way. That 68% number actually came from a San Francisco Fire Department news story. At the time, the cancer rate for the San Francisco Fire Department for active and retired firefighters was 68%. It was true in San Francisco. Their numbers are absolutely extraordinary to this day. Boston's numbers, same thing, off the charts, have been for 15 years. They have been diagnosing an average of 3 a month. Thanks to Dr. Mike Hamrock tracking those numbers and quantifying those cases. And this is where you have to go back and look at, one, where is that number and citation coming from? Who is actually collecting that data, and what is driving the collection of that data? In other words, are they a for-profit? Are they using it to make money? Are they using it because they want to save lives?
Right.
People like Mike Hamrock, they want to save lives.
Right.
Okay, it's the passion, it's the heart. He was a firefighter. He's a physician. He's given of himself, and does to this day in every aspect of life, to save other people. So you have to look at, again, what's motivating that information to be put forth. So at the time, no, 68% on a national level was not true. At that time, the number that had been quantified was between 60 and 62%. So I immediately started texting. I started texting all the folks. Bobby Halton got a text, Billy Goldfeder got a text, other people got a text. Hey, where did that number come from? Because it's not true right now.
Right.
You're going to scare the you-know-what out of people unnecessarily, which is not what we should be doing. We're here to educate. We're not here to fearmonger.
Right.
So now this industry has realized, okay, we've got cancer.
Right.
2006, thanks to Grace LeMasters, they realized, oh, we've got cancer.
Right.
All right. So guess what? Here we are in 2020. Yeah, we've got cancer. Now we've got COVID and we've got cancer. Two C words.
Right.
I'll keep it clean.
So yeah. So I mean, so 68% maybe was too high, but I mean, there still is significantly higher cancer rates.
But fast forward, there are pockets of the United States that, yes, the numbers are higher than the norm. We have to go back and look at, again, by region, and then quantify by region and by city. Okay, really, what are your numbers? Right. We need to make sure that information is properly substantiated, and then look at what are those numbers and what is that information going to do to affect our lives?
Right.
How is it going to affect our insurance rates? How is it going to affect our employability? How is it going to affect all these other aspects of our life that those numbers also impact? So you have to think, again, looking at the big picture.
And why is there a higher incidence of cancer in the fire service in general? I mean, is it the fact that things are burning around you? I mean, what's the?
So here's that's the magic question, but I can tell you it's not just one thing. And from a scientific standpoint, that's the biggest challenge, because science wants things in a neat box. They want things to be able to be repeatable. Okay, to again, quantify it scientifically, medically, substantiate it. Every fire is different. Every single fire has a different profile to it, a different chemical makeup, a different time that it burns, and different effects of what it provides, both environmentally and to humans that are exposed to it. So how do we take something that can't be repeated the same way, the exact same way, every time, and quantify and substantiate it? That's the challenge with firefighter cancer. What we do know is that if you're working X number of hours in a fire station, when you walk in that fire station, your exposure clock starts, because the building the contaminants that are in that building, the cleaning materials in the building, the diesel exhaust in that building, whatever else is encompassed in that building are all exposures. They're all off-gassing. That's just walking into a firehouse on duty. We literally park a vehicle, in where we live for 24 or more hours a day. I used to equate it to parking a BMW in your kitchen when people could, get that visual. And there were studies that showed where diesel exhaust actually traveled through the fire station and got into the food in the refrigerator at the other end of the building, in the kitchen.
It's crazy because we always talk about like taking your shoes off at the front door. Like you're driving your vehicle into your house.
Yeah. So over a decade ago, myself and my team, again, and looking at that same thing, we looked at cross-contamination and we came out with the first matrix for the fire service. All we did was literally take a hazmat model and we reapplied the hazmat thinking to contamination thinking in a fire station. So we adapted, which is what we're trying to do now as well, with COVID. Yeah. We're adapting, we're pivoting. But when we looked at cross-contamination a decade ago, it was a foreign topic. It was like deer in the headlight. Look, architects had no clue. We were speaking Chinese. It took an architect to put it into their language to get them to further understand and change how fire stations are now designed, and also how we mitigate those contaminants from outside the fire station to inside the fire station. And same thing, inside the fire station to outside.
And this is before you ever go into a burning building. This is just building.
This is just the fire station. Yeah, this is before we even go to a fire. It's crazy. Okay, so then you go to fire and you're exposed to all this stuff that you may never be able to identify. We use typically 4 and 5 gas meters to monitor on a fire ground, not all the time. Again, as we're changing and transitioning, how much information do we have to know how we operate? Well, OSHA has a standard that says, look, if you don't know, then you need to be breathing air, you need to be protecting yourselves, and you need to be taking those protections for yourself, your crews, and everybody around the scene. We haven't been doing that. Yeah. We still have places that we don't do that.
Right.
We need people to embrace this, literally from the chief level down and from the bottom level, whoever is walking into that fire scene, but even the public needs to understand. Because when the public takes back a building that is burned, guess what? They're being exposed to all those contaminants as well.
Right. And do you think that there's a sentiment in the fire service of like invincibility and, it's not going to affect me?
So, you go through the process to become a firefighter, and then you go through all this training, and the training literally teaches you protocols and a paramilitary process of training your brain to be able to function automatically, to be able to read a scene and process and give orders and act all simultaneously within seconds. We literally go through a programming process when you go through fire school to be able to do all those things and save lives and save property and hopefully not kill ourselves. So when you're asking our brain, the computer, to do all these things and then ask our body to respond, yeah, it puts you in a mindset of almost invincibility.
Right.
We've now had to go back and retrain those minds, and we're still retraining those minds. And we can now show, depending on years of service, where that mindset sits. So your folks coming in the fire service now, guess what? They're learning about contaminants from day one, and they're learning about firefighter cancer from day one. Your folks that have 7 to 15 years on the job, well, okay, now you've got the saltiness, which still does exist. And I'm still seeing a split mindset where you have folks that go, yeah, I know I got cancer. Everybody's going to get cancer. I'm not going to worry about it until it hits either themselves or someone they know. Right. Then their mind shifts. And then you've got the folks that are beyond 20, 25 years who are going to funerals, who themselves may have to plan their funeral. And you have the retirees who are young retirees, as in anywhere from age 48 to 60. They should not be dying from these cancers that are dying of these cancers.
Right. Yeah. And that's the tough part too. I mean, you put in your 25, 30 years, but you started when you were 18, and so like you're retiring in your 40s. And
this is a young person's occupation. This is a young person's field. And I don't care whether you're a volunteer or you're working this as a career. When you dedicate your life to serving your community and to serving others, it takes a toll on your body. It takes a toll on your mind.
Yeah.
We see that both in the physical stress and the physical aging of the body. And then we see it in the mental stress and the mental aging of the body as well.
Well, I mean, the number of clients that we work with who are getting, knee replacements at 40 and, stuff like that.
Oh,
it's
please.
the physical stress.
Arthritis. Yeah.
It's obvious. Yeah. So talk to me, let's talk a little bit about technology, because we're a technology company.
Yeah.
That's what, our audience is used to hearing about. How does something like a drone or any other type of, remote technology, are there ways that technology can be used to help like mitigate some of this exposure?
Absolutely. And, and that's kind of this is sort of the exciting happy track that we as a foundation have decided for our own mental health. And so that we feel have kind of the greatest impact on this area. We've decided to kind of shift and pivot. Yes, we still provide personal resource information and assistance and guidance, but we want to change the world. We want to improve the world, and we want to improve the practices. So yes, technology is the future. So is education. So by putting them together hand in hand, we believe by helping companies like yours continue to bring new and improved tech to the table, we can now change what's been done, the ways that have served us maybe for 50 to 100 years. We can do them better. We can also do them in a more healthy way. So working smarter, not harder, to use that mantra, this is where tech comes in. But it also goes back to saving lives and saving the environment. We're now having to be more mindful than ever before of what those effects are on both the humans and the environment and everything that we do. And from a liability standpoint, we're having to be cognizant now in everything we do.
Yeah. No.
So good.
No, I was a mantra, that we're always talking about too, is, particularly like for things like hazmat, I mean, the more you can send a plastic robot in to do the job, and not put yourself in danger, even in a level A suit, you're still getting some exposure to some level. So the more you can make a robot do that, the better off that everybody's going to be, and the quicker you can try and mitigate it.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned a level A suit, because something that we haven't looked at enough, and we need to look at more also as an industry. NASA has studied it, the military has studied it considerably, but it's heat stress. Yeah. The effects of climate on our bodies. Again, now you're looking at another external influencer. And so every time you have to put on your PPE, we know that personal protective equipment creates stress on the body, physical stress in how we move, but also heat stress in the amount of heat that's retained in the core of the body. That takes a toll on us, both our cardiac status as well as all the other body systems, as well as brain function. So no, the more that we can use technology like drones to go in and reduce those times. Yes, there are times you actually do need to have a human in some place, or should have a human in some place to assist and to assess. But if we can continue to get better at using technology such as yours, absolutely. Now you're looking at saving the humans, and honestly, that's needs to be a priority for us.
I'd say, it's, people first, and then property, and then.
Correct.
So let's talk about mitigation and things like that. So what are, first of all, how are we doing on getting better at finding cancer in the fire service? What do we know, and how is that process improving?
So it's really exciting. We are getting closer with regards to blood testing and looking at biomarkers in the body for identifying the nuanced changes going on inside the body that we can't even pick up currently with MRI or necessarily with CT or with other scanning devices. Those of you that have been following our work for the Firefighter Cancer Foundation, yes, we've used dogs. We were the first organization to use dogs with the fire service and look at using an animal nose to try to determine what is changing in our body, where is it changing on our body, and how do we make that repeatable and scalable. We're still continuing to learn, but we've realized that yes, while dogs have an amazing nose and they have a myriad of purposes for that nose, when it comes to detecting cancer in humans, we still have a lot to learn, and we still have a lot to figure out in that realm. Same thing with the use of technology. We need to go back to literally cells, and let's go back and look at the basics. Okay, what is actually changing our DNA? What is actually changing our cellular structure? And then how do we mitigate that? So yeah, looking at blood work, looking at the other aspects of medicine and science that can literally, whether it's going to be scan our bodies or look at our bodies from the inside out. There is an incredible amount of work happening right now that we can employ for the fire service to try to, and again, we're still catching up. So really to catch up to what we've been dealing with now and what we built into.
Well, hell, even just tracking. I mean, I remember the conversation we had with the folks at the Cancer Center here at Emory, just
Yeah.
the registry of just even knowing who's got it and identifying them as firefighters.
And I'm glad you mentioned registry, because we're still working that registry side. There's an amazing group out of the Netherlands that we were connected with through smartfirefighting.com and Kevin Sofin. And yeah, we're still working with the CDC folks that themselves are hitting some walls with regards to tracking firefighter cancers, and how do we get beyond not only the issues with reporting, how it's reported, how we refine that information by region, and then how it's quantified, because we're mobile people. So when someone goes for treatment at a cancer center, they're not necessarily from the region where that cancer center is hosted. So how do we delineate that information and again, make it accurate? So we're still trying to work on that with regards to registry tracking and how all that comes into play. But that is one of the areas that we're definitely keen on right now.
So one of the things that really stuck out in my mind after we had that meeting here in Atlanta, we were talking to Webb Marshall, who's on your team, and he was saying, it's great to know about all these tests that you need to get, but they're not covered by my insurance. My department doesn't pay for them. So you're actually putting money out of your own pocket. I think he said, in addition to his normal physical, he paid like $800 to get all the extra tests. So what can we do about that? I mean, is that like, how do you get people to, I guess quantifying data is a good way to do that to start.
Yeah, if we can, and this is where you do need, and I understand, from an insurance standpoint, you have to have, they operate off of data. They are totally data driven. And yes, you have to have a methodology for being able to support why we spend money where we do. And that is really one of the main questions that we're continuing to answer. How do we make this not only fair, but also equitable across the board with regards to who pays for what, who shoulders that responsibility, and at what level that responsibility is shouldered, whether it's us as individuals, or it's the fire department or the city or municipality. Now you're walking that line of workplace safety and health and maintaining that for the workforce. And then us as individuals also taking our own personal responsibility with how we take care of ourselves, but also how we monitor our own personal health. To be continued.
Yeah, well, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, there's no easy answers to this, or else we would have figured it out by now. So.
Yeah.
And then, right, like you said, you add COVID to the mix, and now insurance companies and all this stuff, it's all over the place right now. So
COVID is throwing in a very interesting twist to this, that not only is forcing fire departments to go places that they hadn't planned. Well, they planned on going with regards to personal safety for their workforce, but they had not necessarily been forced to put into effect. Yes, we're now leaving our boots in the bay. Right. We're now wearing, I spoke with a department yesterday that's now wearing literally Crocs inside the living quarters of the fire station. The entire department has been assigned Crocs to wear.
That's awesome.
And I think that's pretty darn creative, and kudos to them, because now they found a footwear that's comfortable. They found a company to work with that is supporting first responders. So you're supporting a US-based business, which is huge. And we're solving a variety of problems all at the same time.
Yeah.
But
yeah, well, and I think, I talked to both of my brother and my dad are healthcare workers, and my sister-in-law, and, they're like, everything comes off before I walk in the house. in some ways it's like the donning and doffing, like we used to talk about in hazmat all the time. Now it's every day people coming, I'm coming in from a job, I got to take everything off, I got to shower, I got to decontaminate before I even just walk into my house. I'm not bringing it in there.
Right.
Speaking of which, another thing that Webb brought up that I found fascinating and frightening at the same time was talking about the transference of this stuff. When you come home, he said he won't let his kids into the trunk of his car because that's where he keeps his gear.
No.
And I don't remember all the details. I'm sure you will, but a study talking about how quickly that material got onto the kids' toys and stuff that could be carcinogenic, and how kids are really, the kids of firefighters are getting cancer at a more
Absolutely. And that's something that we've been looking at for a long time with regards to the kids and the cancer. St. Baldrick's Foundation does an amazing job of working in the pediatric cancer realm. And we've been working with them since 2005. But what's incredible is that, yes, all these contaminants that are on the fire ground, or even what's in the fire station, then get transferred, whether it's going to be via our clothing or our personal body. Hair, skin, breathing, obviously, into our vehicle. And then we put our family into that vehicle, then they're exposed. Now, granted, it may be minute amounts, but when you look at minute exposure over and over again, this is how we have firefighter cancer. This is how we believe, and why we believe we may be seeing some of our trends with regards to pediatric health issues and potentially pediatric cancer as well. That's an area that we need to open up more study in. And we've been talking to folks in that realm about that also. Because
it's not just cancer. That's an important thing too. It's asthma and heart disease and all kinds of other things that are.
So the body breaks down. Yeah, long before cancer happens, the body breaks down in other ways and gives us clues that it's breaking down in other ways. So things like asthma or diabetes or blood pressure or skin rashes. It can be any number of things that will show up or manifest that are showing, wait a minute, the body's under attack from something from the outside. What is it? Where is it coming from? And then what do we do about it? How do we mitigate it? So for first responders now who have been literally scared to death about bringing COVID home to their families, many of which have had to leave their families and not be with their families during these really trying times, it's just one more insult added to the injury for first responders and the medical communities that they've had to face over the last couple of months.
But at the same time, too, I think with COVID being like the clear and present danger, cancer seems intangible, far off. That's a later problem. It's starting to get people thinking about PPE and cleaning and, and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, look at the fact that you still can't find, there are places in the country you still can't find disinfecting products now, or we've had to get more creative. We now have distilleries that are making hand sanitizer.
Right.
So you can get your moonshine, and you can get your hand sanitizer. One-stop shopping.
Yeah, it's a one-stop shop. Yeah, no, it's great. I love it. At the risk of, we've been talking a lot about the problems. What are some of the things that people who are watching can do now? Either in their departments, in their personal lives. What are some of those actionable items?
So I think one of the greatest things that we've seen, fortunately, we're lucky in this country that our federal government, irregardless of how people feel about it right now, they did step up and they declared COVID an emergency, which opened up funding to help pay for all the things that they suddenly had to scramble to pay for that normally they did not with regards to personal health and safety. Cleaning materials, things for cleaning the disease, out of the equipment, so that they're running these calls and exposed to all these viruses and things. Well, we have to get rid of them somehow because they're affecting the human workforce. So the good news is I've talked to folks from departments around the country. It hasn't been as much the money to pay for those things now, but what has clamped down because our economy has shifted. So now the workforce has frozen. So now we're still working all these new jobs and all these new roles with the same number of bodies.
Right.
And we're not adding any bodies to it. Number one, we're taking bodies out of the mix because as people are getting sick or are getting hurt or are retiring, we're not replacing them right now because of fiscal constraints. because again, everything is frozen. You know, we're still living Groundhog Day, and we're almost to August 1st. So, you know, from a personal standpoint, honestly, if individuals that are first responders can look first at, okay, how am I living at home and how am I taking care of myself when I'm off duty? You know, am I actually making sure I'm getting the amount of sleep I should be getting? Am I drinking the right amount of water? Am I hydrating? Am I looking at my mental health and relating to my family and taking care of myself and my surroundings as best I can? Nutrition, huge, huge. Nutrition and alcohol, the two things we can control that we put in and on our body, okay? So instead of eating garbage and gaining 25 pounds, which is one of the worst things you can do, because now you're increasing both COVID and cancer risk, okay? If anything, let's look at what we can do. We can eat healthier food, okay? We can look at supplements that are gonna help maintain our health, and we cannot indulge in as much alcohol as what we tend to, all right, when times are tough.
If there's any benefit to not having FDIC this year, it was my liver got a break. It was a whole lot less alcohol consumed in April. So.
Yeah. And I'm sure the Indianapolis bars, again, were crying because, I mean, the fiscal impact there alone. Yeah. But no, and nothing against, again, meat, alcohol, certain food groups. Okay, look, everything has its place in life. But as soon as you start doing something in too much, okay, your body goes out of balance. When your body goes out of balance, it creates a shift, and those shifts have a pivotal effect. All right. So again, if you're not taking care of yourself when you're at home, when you go to work, you're not going to be at your optimum performance. And if you're not at your optimum performance, guess what? You're going to get sick sooner and you're going to get injured more easily.
Yeah.
Then you're of no use to anybody, let alone yourself.
Right. No, it's such an important topic. And I think, like you said, I mean, every little bit adds up to, a career-long exposure and not taking care of yourself and things like that. We see this all in law enforcement too. I mean, how many police officers do we know that, retire and then, a year later they die of a heart attack because they haven't been taking care of themselves for so many years. So, and we get it. I mean, it's certainly the stress of the job and the mental toll that it takes.
Absolutely.
You've got to cope somehow too. So it's not faulting anybody, but it's difficult. So
there's a difference between coping and using the tools that either you're taught or that you have available. And really just either sticking your head in the sand or sticking your head someplace else and not taking advantage of the things that are there and the people that are there to help you. And the services and the tools are there. Okay. Reaching out is the hardest thing from a mental standpoint for many first responders to do, because we're not used to asking for help for our own, let alone for ourselves, because we're trained to help other people.
Right.
So we've had to shift and now look at, wait a minute, I have to now think about taking care of myself first, then I can take care of everybody else. And that's not something that we're used to doing.
Yeah, well, and on that note too, I mean, I think the stigma around cancer in the fire service is going away, maybe slowly, but going away. I think the stigma around mental health in the fire service and the military and PTSD and all that has helped. Where you should not be afraid to ask for help and get the resources that you need, because they are out there. It's not weak to ask for those,
not at all. If anything, I have a lot more respect because I believe it really is a show of strength and character. When you can swallow your pride, when you can check your ego at the door and you can actually raise your hand and go, okay, I need help.
Yeah.
Guess what? You're not only saving yourself, I will lay odds you're saving at least another 1 to 20 other people who also were standing in the background going, oh, I don't want to be the one to step forward out of the shadows to ask for help because I don't want to seem selfish or I don't want the spotlight on myself. It's not about me.
Right.
So again, as those folks continue to come forward and share their stories of whatever their challenges are, and everybody has them, okay? Everybody has junk in the trunk, as they say. Yeah. Just again, unpack it, put it out there. Life is messy right now, okay? But you know what? Everybody's life is messy right now.
Yeah.
Let's all help fix each other together, okay?
Right.
It doesn't have to be that hard.
Yeah, it's a little bit easier to struggle now than everybody else is struggling to, for better or for worse. It's a little.
Well, yeah, it's across the board, and if nothing else, I've seen a huge shift. I think in people really pulling back and looking at their core values. People, myself included, we never slowed down enough to really stop and kind of take a look and reassess not only how we're living and how we're treating ourselves.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to get caught up in, I've got to run my business, I've got to take care of my family, I've got to take care of everything else that we place as mental and physical demands on ourselves. Guess what? COVID shut us down.
Yeah.
COVID made us all stop and go, whoa, what the hell?
Yeah.
Okay.
You gotta take a hard look at everything right now. So
a scary look, very scary look.
Yeah.
People are cleaning their houses and finding things, man, they didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
So it's a great time for house cleaning and honestly, in the theoretical sense of house cleaning, whether it's in your business or in your personal life or it's in your head, this is a really good time to reflect and look at what's most important to you. Where do your core values sit? What do you believe in? We all have beliefs, biases, things that we've grown up with, that we've been exposed to. Those times are being challenged and pushed right now from every direction. So, look at who you surround yourself with in life.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's most important to you? What's most important to you? Because it can be all gone literally in a second.
Yeah. No, well said. Well, I think this is such an important topic, and we're going to keep shedding light on it. I really, really appreciate you coming on and spending the time kind of giving us the background and explaining this all to us. And, we really appreciate your friendship and your partnership on this. And, through the Smart Firefighting Network, as you mentioned, with Kevin and Mike over at Darley and everybody else that kind of helps keep that together. That's what brings these relationships together. So it's a huge testament to what they're doing there too. So,
and thank you as a company, because the fact that you all have had to pivot and shift as a small business to survive. I'm glad you're still here.
Thank you.
Our team is still glad you're still here. Yeah, well, the people that you employ, again, and this is how simple it starts, supporting local businesses like yours, and supporting U.S. businesses and U.S. business folks. These are tough times, but if you kind of look beyond your nose and look at how you can help one person beyond yourself, if everybody did that in any given day, look at how much better we would be as a society and as a nation.
Yeah.
So, thank you for being there, and we appreciate your partnership, but even more your technology.
Yeah.
It's the drone technology is going to save human lives as well.
Yeah. Well, that's the goal, and that's why we do what we do every day. And it was so important for us to make it through this time because I feel really strongly. Actually, I have my our first challenge coin here sitting on my desk to remind me every day that on the bottom it says "Omnis Stato Domus," which means everybody goes home. So that's why we do what we do, and
absolutely,
your help in doing that. So. With that, I will tell everybody that if you want more information on what Cindy and the Firefighter Cancer Foundation are doing, you can go to ffcancer.org. You can also check out skyfireconsulting.com. We've got, actually, I don't know on our new website. We'll make sure we get you guys on there as a partner. We just launched it a couple of weeks ago, so we're still in transition a little bit, but you can always reach out to us and we'll get you in touch with Cindy. So thank you so much for everything you do, and I will get our exciting dance music going back up.
Time to dance.
We'll end on a happy note. So thank you guys all so much for watching and for everything you guys are doing out there to help keep us safe. Again, you can reach us at skyfireconsulting.com, shoot us an email, give us a call, Facebook, Twitter, still not on TikTok, and we will talk to you guys soon. Cindy, thanks again for joining us. And
thank you.